I heard your company is pulling out. The salaries have been decreasing for the past 3 months, so it really seems like it's in danger. Ah, that topic. I did want to discuss something about that with you. I should have brought it up sooner. But lately, towards me, you know. So, it just made it really hard to discuss. A discussion? You're just going to tell me to work because your company is going under, right? What? The company is going under? Well, I guess that's one way to put it. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What's this? Is it finally time to kick her out? Yeah, I told you before, right? Her company seems to be going under. It looks like it's really happening. I tolerated her not-so-great looks because her parents owned the company, thinking it was a good marriage decision, but this is unacceptable. Sure, being raised in America and being so good at your job is cool, but raising the bar high because you're mixed and then looking like this? It would be a different story if at least she was pretty. Both of you. What are you saying? I married you expecting money. And now the company is gone? You're probably struggling in the States too, right? A wife who doesn't bring in a single penny is useless. Get out. When I tell my college friends my mom is mixed, they all imagine a super beauty. It's embarrassing to introduce you, so please quit being my mom. After finding out my company was going under, my husband and his daughter changed their attitude towards me completely. Their heartless words are breaking my spirit. I had a lot to say, but given everything that's happened, I no longer have the energy. I get it. You want me to divorce you and leave this house. That's right. It's good that you're quick to understand, makes things easier. Just so you know, I won't be there when you regret this. If my husband wants a divorce, I'll grant his wish. I will quietly go through with the divorce, and he will surely regret it deeply. My name is Amy. My mother is Japanese, and my father is American, making me mixed, and I'm usually called Amy. My parents live in the US, but I've been living in Japan for about 10 years now due to work. My father is the CEO of a company in the US that develops software and deals with imports and sales. I came to Japan to work for the Japanese branch of my father's company. I was thrilled to move to Japan, as I loved Japanese cartoons. Some might have thought that being mixed and living in Japan, I would be popular and well received upon arrival. However, that wasn't the case. I'm plain-looking and not good at socializing outside of work, so people probably found me hard to approach. During my student years, I would spend time alone in a corner of the classroom, and leave school as quickly as possible once classes were over. I was what you might call a loner in Japanese terms. Not being able to change my introverted nature overnight, I continued to be a loner even after coming to Japan. Being alone is nothing new to me, so I've gotten used to it. As a result, I didn't try to forcibly expand my social connections in my private life. Rather, I had given up, thinking it was something I couldn't do. Perhaps the gods pitied me because, at the age of 37, 5 years after coming to Japan, I had a meaningful encounter. Wow, Amy, you work at a software development company? That's amazing. I also work in the IT industry, but I haven't heard of your company name. Sorry for my ignorance. Not at all, our company isn't well known unless you're involved in servers and networks, so it's natural you haven't heard of it. Plus, I don't work in development, I mainly handle imports and sales. So, I'm not that amazing. The Dart bar I frequently visited was popular with people who had come to work in Japan from abroad. The place had a friendly atmosphere, making it easy for strangers to strike up conversations. Even though I'm usually on my own, there are times when I want to talk to people. It was at that Dart bar where I met the man who would become my husband. Do you not play darts, Amy? I'm just here to drink, not to play darts. Are you drinking iced tea, Ken? Yeah, I'm usually just dragged here by my senior colleagues. I don't drink alcohol or play darts. It must be tough dealing with office relationships. Looking at his phone for the time, my husband-to-be placed his iced tea on the counter. What? You're leaving already? It's only 7 o'clock. My daughter is about to come home from her cram school. Since I don't have a wife, I need to prepare dinner. That's why I can get away around this time when invited out by my colleagues. It's a good excuse that no one can complain about, don't you think? Hearing his joke-laden words made me laugh unintentionally. Seeing me laugh, my husband gave a light smile back and then went to make his excuse to his senior colleagues for leaving. From that day on, every time I went to the dart bar, I found myself looking for my husband, and he would always come over to talk whenever he saw me. So, you work for your father's company, huh? That's pretty cool. Not really, it might seem like a big company because we have overseas branches, but it's not that big. It's like a small to medium-sized enterprise in Japan. At the dart bar, despite not playing darts, we always enjoyed standing and chatting at the edge of the counter with a drink in hand. Each time we met, my husband and I grew closer, and we began to meet outside of the dart bar as well. It was a natural progression for us to start dating. As I was approaching 40, I was elated by the arrival of spring in my life. But I couldn't just be elated. To continue dating my husband, I had to build a relationship with his daughter, Naomi. At the time, she was 15 years old, a middle schooler on the brink of exams, which made me worry. However, my worries were soon proven unnecessary. Amy, you lived in America until 5 years ago, right? Being mixed, capable at work, and cool, you've got it all. Why are you dating Dad of all people? Hey, don't compliment Amy while beating me down. That's right. It's not nice to speak ill of Ken. Besides, I'm not that cool. I began to eat dinner with his daughter at his house. The three of us enjoyed our meals together, joking around. It was an utterly normal family dinner scene. I was delighted by this normalcy more than anything. Given the good relationship with his daughter, we got married 2 years after we started dating. Up to here, everything went smoothly, but as it was an international marriage, things got a bit hectic from there. The most challenging part was meeting each other's parents. I took my husband and his parents to America, but since my husband and his in-laws couldn't speak English and were not very familiar with overseas culture, it was difficult. Wow, is this your father's company's brochure? It's all in English, I can't understand a thing. This part explains our main products. What should we do about the bride price? For weddings, New Year's cash gifts, and celebrations for childbirth and school admissions, it's common to exchange significant sums of money at every occasion, which isn't really a thing overseas, so it's not necessary. My mother and I, who understood both Japanese and American languages and cultures, were very busy. However, the fact that my mother and I were so busy meant that my husband and his parents were trying to understand the environment I grew up in and my parents. Despite the hustle and bustle, I felt a comforting fatigue. Once the wedding was smoothly over, I began living with my husband and his daughter as a family of 3. I thought we would start a happy life in Japan as a family of 3, but gradually the atmosphere began to darken. A year after the marriage, when his daughter became a high school student, my husband made a proposal. Naomi's high school entrance exams made me realize something. My late work hours have put too much strain on Naomi. The upcoming university entrance exams will be even harder, so maybe one of us should try to be home more, don't you think? That might be the case. This conversation had occasionally taken place between my husband and me when we were alone in the living room. We had been postponing making a decision because it wasn't something we could easily decide on. My husband seemed to suggest that it was time to make a decision, with a serious expression on his face. Seeing his expression, I wondered if we could postpone making a decision until about next year when our daughter starts preparing for university entrance exams. Though perspectives have changed now, in cases like this, it's still common in Japan for women to quit their jobs and take care of the house and children. This situation sounds like my husband is asking me to quit my job or find one that allows me to come home earlier. However, that's not the case for us. That's why I'm troubled. Ken, you're thinking that I should continue working as I am now, and you should switch to a job that lets you come home earlier, right? Given our situation, wouldn't that make sense? You earn a higher salary. Most importantly, you work at your father's company. It wouldn't be right to ask you to switch jobs, would it? That makes sense considering the situation. But are you okay with that? You've been at your current company for over 20 years, right? If it's for Naomi, I'm okay with it. Unable to meet my husband's earnest gaze, I looked away. I felt guilty about having my husband quit the job he had been dedicated to for so long. However, it seemed he was prepared for it. Realizing I had not noticed my husband's readiness, I felt embarrassed for trying to delay answering. Okay. Let's go with that. I gave in to my husband's determination and accepted the proposal on the spot. Did you both bring your lunch? Of course. I wouldn't forget something like that. Oh, sorry. I forgot mine. Rushing because she was late, my daughter hurriedly left the house, and I, in the middle of putting on my shoes at the entrance, rushed back to the kitchen to grab the lunch my husband had prepared. My husband quit his job and became a part-time homemaker. With him taking care of the housework and looking after our daughter, I could focus on my work. Also, with my husband being home more, he was able to support our daughter properly, which helped her smoothly pass her university entrance exams. Though I felt sorry for having my husband quit his job, it might have been the right choice for our family. I packed the lunch he prepared, which was on the kitchen table, into my bag while feeling grateful to my husband. However, 3 years into our marriage, the situation has significantly changed, and I'm starting to regret the decision for my husband to become a stay-at-home dad. I'm home. Huh? What about dinner? Isn't it on the table? Instant noodles? Again? Can't help it. Being a homemaker is busy, you know. Besides, it looks like your salary has dropped this month. Is your company okay? Huh? The company? Yeah. It's fine. Don't worry. It's been slowly decreasing for the last 2 years, and it's significantly reduced these last 2 months. Of course, I'd worry. I quit my job, after all. Make sure you work hard and earn well. We have Naomi's tuition to think about. That instant noodle is part of our savings plan for emergencies, so just eat it and bear with it. Okay. I couldn't respond to my husband and silently poured hot water into the cup noodles, glancing at the 2 sets of washed dishes. In the first year of marriage, my husband was kind, but from the 2nd year onwards, his attitude gradually changed. Now, in the 3rd year, dinner is often instant noodles, and instead of lunch, I'm given $5. It wasn't just my husband whose attitude had changed. Hey. Just because you came home early, don't take a bath before me. The bath gets all smelly from you. Huh? Oh, sorry. But do I really smell that bad? Don't talk back. Just stay quiet and say yes. Since I got home early, I thought I'd take a bath early. But as I came out of the bathroom, my daughter stormed into the changing room and yelled at me. She pushed me out of the changing room, throwing my clothes into the hallway. Then I heard the sound of the bathroom door slamming shut from inside. Unexpectedly kicked out and not fully dried, I quietly went back to the changing room. It seemed like my daughter was in the bath, intending to change the water. Before she came out, I quickly dried off, threw my towel in the laundry basket, and quietly left the changing room to dress in the hallway. It seems I've become completely treated like an old lady by my daughter. Well, to my 20-year-old daughter, 42-year-old me might indeed be an old lady. A few years ago, she used to say I was cool, but now those days feel like a distant past. Under normal circumstances, anyone would blow up at being treated so poorly by their husband and daughter. However, they are family, so I want to avoid worsening our relationship by losing my temper. But truthfully, the real reason might be because I'm inherently introverted. In the current situation, my husband and daughter have teamed up against me, making it a 2-on-1 scenario. There's no way I, being introverted, could stand up to both of them. I'm scared of confrontation and isolation, so I run from problems. How's married life? No problem at all. Ken takes care of the house, and Naomi is attending university just fine. I put on a smile and lie to my parents. I talk to my parents via video call every few months, and it used to be something I looked forward to. But now, I can't share my troubles about my husband and daughter with them, making these calls a painful time of lies. If I opened up to my parents, I'm sure all my pent-up frustration and sadness would overflow uncontrollably. Moreover, my parents are overseas, so I can't easily rely on them, nor do I want to worry them from so far away. So, I forcefully swallow the words of weakness that almost escape and push them back down. I should yell at my husband and daughter. I should talk to my parents about my troubles, even though they're across the ocean. Some might think it's easy to say, but that's the struggle of being introverted. However, I know not taking action and not explaining why my salary is decreasing is only making things worse. But being introverted isn't always bad. Sometimes, by not taking action, problems resolve themselves. This time, it resulted in my husband causing his downfall. One day, as I came home from work and sighed at the sight of the usual cup noodles on the kitchen table, my husband spoke up from behind. The one who wants to sigh is me. What? I was caught off guard by his sudden approach, causing me to shake the cup noodles I was holding, making a noise like maracas. Oh, you're here. You scared me. I heard from a former coworker of yours that your company is pulling out. Your salary has been decreasing for the past 3 months, so it seems pretty dangerous. Ah, that topic. I wanted to discuss something about that. I should have brought it up sooner. You know, with you and Naomi recently. So, it just made it really hard to discuss. A discussion? You're just going to tell me to work because your company is going under, right? What? The company is going under? Well, I guess that's one way to put it. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What's this? Is it finally time to kick her out? When I tried to explain the reason behind the decrease in my salary to my husband, our daughter, overhearing us, came into the kitchen. She stood by my husband as if it was the most natural thing, ready to gang up on me, 2 against 1. Yeah, I told you before, right? Her company seems to be going under. It looks like it's really happening. Seriously? Then there's no reason for her to stay here anymore. Right? I even quit my job because of this. Really, I feel sorry for Dad. I can't find a moment to interject as my husband and daughter continue their conversation like a machine gun, leaving me just listening to them. Even now, my tendency to avoid confrontation kicks in, making me feel pathetic. However, my silence only fuels them to say unbelievable things. I tolerated marrying someone with a lower face value because her parents owned the company. This is unacceptable. Sure, being raised in America and being so successful is cool, but setting the bar high because you're mixed and then looking like this? It would be a different story if you were at least pretty. Both of you. What are you saying? Finally, I managed to insert myself into their conversation, though with a feeble voice. But my attempt only accelerates their onslaught. I married you expecting money. And now the company is gone? The situation in America must be bad too, right? A wife who doesn't bring in a single penny is useless. Get out. When I tell my college friends my mom is mixed, they all imagine a supermodel. Introducing you is embarrassing, so quit being my mom. Their heartless words continue to break my spirit. I had a lot to say, but I no longer have the energy. I get it. You want me to divorce you and leave this house. Exactly. It's good you understand quickly, makes things easier. Dad gave up his job to be a homemaker so you could continue yours, and now you're not fulfilling your role and expecting Dad to take care of everything because your job is gone? You're really the worst. No wonder Dad wants to leave you. My daughter seems to genuinely despise me, glaring at me like a demon. My husband is smirking beside her. Seeing his expression, anger wells up within me. It's been a while since I've felt this angry. Just so you know, I won't be there when you regret this. I raise my voice louder than I ever have in my life at my husband, slam the cup of noodles I had been holding onto the kitchen table, and leave to pack my bags. If my husband wants a divorce, I'll grant his wish. I'll quietly go through with the divorce, and he will surely regret it deeply. Then, my husband and I got divorced. It was an international marriage, so some parts of the process were a bit complicated, but it mostly followed Japanese law, and we didn't run into any trouble. When we divorced, we split the savings we had accumulated over our 5 years of marriage. Each of us got $35,000. I didn't want to give any money to my ex-husband, but rules are rules. I figured much of this money would go towards my daughter's remaining 2 years of tuition, so it wasn't worth fighting tooth and nail over. However, giving money to my ex-husband made me realize just how much of a loser he really was. 3 months after the divorce, with my company gone, I returned to the US. I had spent more time in the US, but having lived in Japan for a while, it still felt strange. Thinking about visiting Japan again someday, I received an unexpected video call from my daughter. "Mom, help me." "What's wrong?" The image of my daughter on the computer was grainy, but her panicked expression was clear. I guessed it had something to do with my ex-husband, but the details were beyond what I imagined. I was deceived by Dad. "I'm sorry for everything I said to you." "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." My daughter kept apologizing, and I still didn't have the full picture of what my ex-husband had done to her. I tried to calm her down and started to piece together what had happened over the last 3 months. "The tuition payment is coming up, right? Dad said I have to pay it myself. He said I could pay it, but then I must pay him back with interest once I start working." "Why?" "We split enough money for your tuition when we divorced, didn't we? He says that's his living expenses for the next 2 or 3 years. And on top of that, he said since he raised me, it's my turn to take care of him once I graduate and start working. He's asking you to take my place? That's impossible for you, you're just starting her first year in the workforce. That's exactly why we took you in, so I'd have to do it. If I don't fulfill your role, I'm just like Mom then." I found myself absent-mindedly fidgeting as I listened to my daughter's words. Fidgeting isn't something I picked up in Japan, people in the US do it too when they're frustrated. Realizing I was fidgeting, I also recognized how irritated I was feeling. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't think Dad was like that. Because he kept saying things about you, I started to dislike you. Dad always called you ugly, and I went along with it. But when I really think about it, you weren't that bad of a person. I'm not angry, calm down. You're starting to not make sense again. What exactly did Ken tell you about me? He said he didn't really want to quit his job, but you forced him to. And after the company went under, you were the one who said he should work again." I muted the call, sighed deeply, and then quickly unmuted. When I was faced with divorce, the smirking face of my ex-husband and my daughter's words against me all seemed to follow his narrative, and I had a hunch about it. That hunch, after hearing my daughter's words, turned into a conviction that my ex-husband had brainwashed her into thinking I was the bad one to justify our divorce. Additionally, I began to understand his foolish plan. He took my daughter in, intending to live off her, but when I, a president's daughter, appeared and we got married, he changed his plan to being supported by me. However, once he learned my company was closing, he dumped me to revert to his original plan of being supported by my daughter. It was wrong of my daughter to believe him. Even though she was deceived, the fact that she said hurtful things to me remains true. But, considering he started planting these impressions of me when she was in her 3rd year of high school, she was still very much a child. Especially raised in a single-father household, it's understandable that she would believe him. I know the kind, bright daughter before she was influenced by him. Therefore, just like me, she can be considered a victim of my ex-husband. My anger resurfaces, thinking about how my ex-husband deceived her and caused her so much pain. If the misunderstanding about me is cleared up, then that's good. It seems like you're genuinely remorseful, so I'll forgive you. Don't worry, Naomi. I'll help you. After ending the video call, I was happy, thinking my kind-hearted daughter had returned. And I noticed my fidgeting had stopped. But my anger towards my ex-husband hadn't disappeared. He's bound to realize his mistake. I looked forward to the day he would regret his actions. 3 months after my daughter reached out for help, my ex-husband contacted me. What's the meaning of this? How do you have so much money? Huh? What are you talking about? I knew what he meant, but wanting to see him squirm, I pretended not to understand. He seemed quite desperate, leaning forward so his face filled my computer screen. His face alone was enough to make the screen feel crowded, not to mention his complaints. Naomi suddenly left home. She couldn't possibly have that kind of money. Then I asked her, and she said you're paying her tuition and rent. How do you have so much money after the company failed and you fled back to America? Is it your parents? Did your dad give it to you? Don't be rude. Unlike someone, I don't leech off my family. I'm working and earning my own money to send to Naomi, so you have no right to complain. How can you afford that? You lost your company and should be struggling just like me, right? Your whole story about the company failing and Dad's business doing poorly is where you got it wrong. What do you mean? The company in Japan is gone, isn't it? The company didn't close because it was doing poorly. It was simply a strategic decision to move the company to another country, considering the economic situation and future prospects in Japan. That means? It simply means we decided to cut ties with business in Japan. As the company winds down, work diminishes, right? Since we operate on an incentive system, it's natural for salaries to decrease as work does. While other employees received various compensations, I had a big project lined up, and my base salary was sufficient. Besides, it was originally Dad's company, so I wasn't bothered much about not receiving significant compensation. That's why my salary gradually decreased. Why didn't you tell me that? To explain that, I first need to talk about my current job. I mentioned earlier I had a big project lined up, right? That's becoming the CEO of Dad's company. CEO? Like the president? Ken seemed overly shocked, slamming the desk and standing up. His face moved out of the camera's view, and my computer screen showed only his midsection. After a few seconds, he sat back down, deflated, and his unwelcome face reappeared on my screen. Eager to twist the knife, I decided to get a bit nasty. It's a bit different, but yeah, something like a president. I'm currently a CEO candidate doing the groundwork. I assume I'll eventually become the CEO, and by that time, my annual income might be around $13 million. Annual income? $13 million? Don't lie. Even an annual income of $1 million is insanely wealthy. Yes, in Japan, people making an annual income of $13 million are few. But it's not the same overseas. What's with that? Wasn't Japan supposed to be at the forefront of the world? Seeing my supposed annual income of $13 million, Ken seemed to lose even more strength. He couldn't even lift his head, and my screen now displayed the top of his head. Indeed, as my ex-husband said, earning an annual income of $1 million in Japan would put one at a wealthy level. However, households with assets over $5 million are considered ultra-wealthy in Japan, and they make up only about 0.17% of all households. With assets of $5 million being that rare, my annual income of $13 million is an extraordinary figure in Japan. Yet, when you shift the scale from Japan to the world, that number doesn't seem so extraordinary. It appears there's a 16-fold difference between the salaries of CEOs of major companies in Japan and the US, with the median annual income of CEOs of top US companies being over $23 million. If there are people earning an annual income of $23 million, then my $13 million annual income might not seem all that impressive after all. An annual income of $13 million. Why did you keep such important information from me? If I'm to become the CEO of Dad's company, I'll need to move here, right? Discussing moving you and Naomi to the US with me wasn't something I could just bring up without considering the timing, right? But you misunderstood, thinking my company was going under and I was becoming jobless, and you treated me horribly, remember? After being told I was relying on your money, how could I possibly bring it up? So I let go of an annual income of $13 million. Ken struggled to lift his head, but he overdid it and ended up tilting it back too far. Now, his throat and chin filled my screen. Beyond his frustration, Ken was utterly powerless. Let's not worry about me. How are you doing? Huh? I've heard from Naomi. Your job hunting isn't going well, right? A 5-year gap is fatal in the IT industry where technology and information rapidly converge. Naomi told me you were begging her for help because your job is demanding but pays little. With so few options available to you, you have no choice but to work for a black company, even knowing it's bad. That's right. I'm returning home exhausted every day, but my salary is barely above that of a new recruit. It's hard to save for retirement, and I can't maintain my mental and physical health. Hey, you're making $13 million, right? Help me out like you're helping Naomi. Why should I help you? Besides, I'm not making $13 million yet. But as a CEO candidate, you must be earning a lot, right? That's why you can afford to pay for Naomi's tuition and rent, right? Well, yes, but I have no intention of helping you. Keep slurping those cup noodles. Why did you? Naomi saw the trash bin filled with cup noodle containers when she went to pick up her stuff at your place. It seems you've become too exhausted from working at that toxic company to even cook. How sad. If you had a family, maybe someone could have cooked for you. Hey, don't leave me alone. At least convince Naomi not to abandon me. I have to get back to work soon, so I'm going to hang up now. Wait. It's already night. Don't lie and hang up on me. I ended the call without saying a word. It might be around 11 p.m. in Japan, but where I am, it's just past 1 p.m. Ken must be really desperate if he can't even consider the time difference. Satisfied with seeing Ken's frustration and desperation, I stretched and decided to return to work. It seems Ken continued to work at the toxic company after our call. However, his 46-year-old body and the 5-year gap soon reached their limits. Ken quit the company and started job hunting. However, due to his age, the gap, and quitting his previous job in less than a year, his job search became even tougher. Eventually realizing he couldn't find a job in the IT industry with his desired conditions, Ken, who had part-time experience, got a job at a supermarket. This job is also challenging. Learning new things at 46 is difficult, and he's been ridiculed by part-time students as a useless old man. Moreover, supermarket work requires early mornings and physical strength. Ken is already mentally and physically exhausted. Quitting this job would only make his next job hunt even more challenging, so Ken continues to live, slurping cup noodles at home every day, exhausted. Having a family might have provided support, but I'm divorced, and Naomi has moved out since I supported her financially. Naomi intends to cut ties with Ken, so unless he finds a new wife, he'll be alone from now on. Given Ken's current situation, it seems unlikely there will be a next, so he'll have to manage on his own from here. Naomi and I occasionally video call each other. She wants to work in software or app development after graduating from university and is currently studying hard. I'm working hard in my groundwork to become the CEO of my father's company. The system is different from Japanese companies, and I'm facing various challenges. Despite the tough situation, I make it a point to visit Japan about once a year to keep my motivation for work. My main purpose for visiting Japan is to see Naomi, but I also love cartoons, so I want to shop for merchandise. When I go to Japan, I plan to stay at Naomi's place. Next month will be my first stay at Naomi's new place. Thinking about my trip to Japan next month motivates me to work hard today.